welcome to another segment of On That Note with Mike Patton, India Williams, and yours truly, Dr. Marj. You know, we always have the best time on this show and sharing information and having our conversations about topics that are out there, what's hot, what's not, what's cool, you know, what's
up?
Yeah, you know, and so we just like to hear from you. If it's something that we're talking about or something you'd like for us to discuss, please go to our Facebook page, On That Note, with Mike, India, and Marj, and let us know what your comments are. Please also, if you're viewing this video, please make sure in the comment section that you give us some feedback so that we can continue to provide you with the most important things that you want to hear about.
Yeah. So share it.
Yes.
Share it too with your network.
Please share it. So we're going to be talking about Stormy Daniels, not stormy weather, but Stormy Daniels.
Not stormy weather.
Right. And also we're going to talk about, you know, the Oscars that just recently was on over the weekend, and how we were able to walk away with the best, I think it was best screen, not Screen Actor Guild, but for the best screenplay award. And then also we'll be talking about just rolling from one thing, you know, because when we get to talking, things roll from one thing to the other. So we're going to start with that on that note. And Mike, why don't we start off with not stormy weather, but Stormy Daniels?
Stormy Daniels.
Yes.
Well, you know, stormy weather sometimes happens in people's lives. Depends on what storm you're talking about. Well, as we know, number 45, the person that sits behind the desk, whose name is Donald Trump, who I call 45. 45. I choose to. It is the fact that now, you know, once again, another storm has come to the White House. Another storm has come by his name. And it really just hasn't come, it's been there. But, of course, the White House puts a spin on the things that may cause a cloud on their elected so-called president. And so in so much as this now, we don't now want to come against the fact of who you voted for. That's not the issue. We're talking about things that are in the media right now. And it's not just CNN or people that have a political purpose or an agenda. No, this is real stuff that's happened. Back in 2016, then pre-president, then at the point candidate Donald Trump, allegedly now had an affair with a Playboy bunny or a porn star named Stormy Daniels. And at such time, she had photos, allegedly, and all different types of texts and different things saying that this thing did happen. Source Donald Trump says it didn't happen, as he always says. And so now his lawyer, Collins, now gives Stormy Daniels, at the time of the candidacy when he was running for presidency, $130,000 for quiet money, which is called hush money. Now the question is this: what is a storm? Okay, and I'm not talking about the woman's name. What is a cloud? What can now shift the very mindset of those that are voting or would vote for you to be negative than positive? Is morality really an issue? Is the things that you've done in your past, does that catch up with you that may deter a person now from voting for you that happens in their personal life? And I know we went after Hillary Clinton because you're talking about Benghazi, there's all these about the Clinton machine, finance fund coming from other areas now into their campaign fund, people that we don't even associate with, people that we hate, giving them finance campaign money. But in this case, this was something personal that happened to him. But now the question is, to you, what would you say a storm is? Because I may think one, you may say that ain't no storm. What's a storm?
Right. And I think everyone will have their own different definition of what considers to be a little bit rocky for them.
What's rocky?
But you know, but for number 45, he has all the seasons. He has winter, summer, spring, and fall. There's
all of them.
You know, it goes back to you know, what do we believe? You know, they were saying that she was paid $130,000, which to me that's peanuts. You know, $130,000, but and now it's like, well, the agreement wasn't signed. So she is saying that because the agreement wasn't signed, that she wants the right to be able to speak. And that I guess.
But let's talk about the agreement though, because the agreement was this. First of all, if she had said anything outside of that agreement, she would have to now pay him $1 million. But on the other side, on that note, is that now he signs the name allegedly of an alias name. It wasn't his name that was really on it. It was some Dan David.
But then that means he still didn't sign it. If that's
that means he didn't sign it. And that's the whole point. And the other part about it is that what person, I mean, answer this question. I mean, because I want to hear from you. What person comes, because $130,000 is a lot of money to me.
Well, I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Not
but I
that
mean,
level.
who's gonna come out of their pocket with $100,000,
Yeah.
$30,000 and not want it back?
Right.
That's
Well,
what
not
I'm
only
saying.
that, but by the
Yeah.
time she speaks up, so many people will want to hear her story,
Right.
newscasts
Right.
and book deals. She'll
Yeah.
get
She's
it back.
gonna- she's
I'm not
gonna
worried
boom
that
off of
she
this
is going to
situation.
But
get
you know
it
what?
back.
He is saying it was his personal money. The
Right.
person
Right.
who's supposed to have paid it.
I can't.
Was it really his personal money?
Right.
Or was it campaign
Yeah,
fund?
campaign
Now
funds.
that when it becomes an issue because that's a felony,
Yes.
and you can't use campaign funds
For
for
personal
personal usage,
Yes.
such as that or
Yeah.
any other type of use.
So there's still a case here.
There's
There's
a
still
major
Mhm.
case. So
But I
now,
think you touched on character, and at the end of the day, I do feel like that's something that as voters we should consider when we're thinking about or considering a candidate in general.
so here's the question, Max. Do you think America would have voted for him? And of course, he lost by 3 million votes. We know he said something different, but we know
Look
the
our
truth,
paper.
right? It's the electrical vote, electrical votes. Electrical, what did I say? Electoral votes.
Electoral.
See,
Yeah. Well,
end of
worked
the
out.
day. What I'm saying though
Is that
is,
like
do you really do it? Right.
Right.
Electrician.
Kinda.
Do you think that's like last night somebody said immortality, trying to say immorality.
Okay.
They say immortality.
That's different.
Don't have immortality,
Yeah.
huh?
But was that number
What is that?
Is that number 45?
Probably so.
Yeah.
Big things.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So what was the
Right,
other reason
exactly,
not to vote
exactly.
for him?
Big
What
league.
was
Right,
it?
right. Big league,
Okay,
right.
go ahead.
But the problem is that, do you think America, those that voted him, would have been swayed? They would have found out the fact that he stepped out on his wife the way that he did, and it was flaunted. He took pictures with her openly, that they would have voted with him in and of the same. Do you think it would have?
I think he still would have been voted in. I mean, there were so many things that they kept bringing up, and there were things that we knew about him, and
Right.
people knew about, and they
Oh, yeah.
still voted for him.
Mhm.
So I think they probably would have said, boys will be boys.
Yeah, or
And that forgiveness or
Mhm.
whatever. So in my
Mhm.
heart of hearts, I believe that the same people who voted for him
Still would have voted.
then
Mhm.
would have voted for him,
Yeah.
even if they had that information.
But then the whole topic now becomes, what's the alternative? You know,
Yeah.
Hillary or him?
Yeah.
But I think there was a Russian
Bernie.
collusion.
Yeah.
So my perception
Yeah,
that-
about the burn.
the burn dog. But there was a Russian collusion. Russia got in there somewhere because Clooney came at the last hour. Now I'm putting back on dirt on Hillary, which
Yeah.
now shifted the whole narrative.
Right.
So far as is she, now she's done something now bad. Attention, ABC
Yeah.
News.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden at the last hour, they come, and he already predicted it last year. You all are going to hear some things about Hillary
Yeah.
Clinton
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
better watch out, better hear, because
Yeah.
this is what's going to happen. So I believe he and his son, his brother-in-law, his daughter, all of them were in some of the cahoots as to now when they went over there and talked to them and talked to one of the liaisons, ambassadors at the Trump Tower, that they were informed of what was going on.
So
I
you
totally believe
you
that.
think they knew about Stormy during that time?
I didn't know.
Said
No.
they was on the text thread.
Who didn't know?
Okay, so on
I'm
that
not
note,
surprised.
yeah.
Oh, that no, yeah, his wife knew something.
Right.
Right.
You know,
So, honey, this is gonna come out, so I just want you to get
Right.
prepared. Well,
Yeah.
he had a
Well, honey,
Stormy.
this thing's going to come out.
Yes.
The fact of the day that this really did happen to me. But you got to be hold on to be strong.
Well, you have to
Yeah,
remember
right.
who his wife is.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
What was her
Let's
background?
remember. Yeah, let's remember.
Is she the one who stole a lot of the stuff at the inaugural ball
Well,
from?
we're not
when they
even
were
talking
running?
about that. I'm just referencing her resume. I mean, she
Yeah,
has her
she-
new
yeah.
photo. She has her
The
exotic life.
first lady who came out nude openly,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Well, the other
And
thing
stole
was,
the information
Yes, right.
and stole the
Yeah.
speeches
Of
at the
Michelle.
from Michelle Obama
Yeah.
blatantly as though she wrote it herself.
Right.
And this whole thing, Make America Great Again, guess where that came from, you all? It came from Ronald Reagan when he ran in 1979-80 against Jimmy Carter. He stole it from him. Be informed.
Say nothing is new for
Yeah.
them.
Not with those
Go back
people.
and do the research.
Yes, do your research.
So on that note,
On that
On
note.
that
let's do
note,
a little bit
Yes.
of fun.
yeah.
That was fun though, Mike. So
Right.
thanks for bringing that up, and we'll just kind of follow what's going on with Stormy, whether she becomes weather or whether she
Or whether or
becomes-
not.
whether or not, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on that note, we know that, like I said, this past weekend the Oscars occurred, and that there was, my understanding, a change in what
Oh, yes, there was.
the audience
Yes,
looked
oh,
like.
yeah.
And I
there
think
was.
that came from
Very
the last
racially
one.
diverse.
Yes, there was.
When information was shared that the Oscars was not something that exemplified or
Inclusion.
inclusion, did not include African Americans or people of color. And so they changed a little bit this year, and we saw more people who were present there just simply because there was an effort to bring
Right.
change about.
Right.
And with that, we had a win.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, in the best screenplay
Mhm.
with
Get Out, Jordan
Yes.
Peele.
Jordan Peele,
Mhm.
Oh,
Get
yeah,
Out, and
very
so he
good.
walked away
Yes,
with that,
with
and so
Oscar.
we're very
And
pleased
you know,
with
one
that.
thing we didn't mention, Kobe Bryant also.
Oh, yeah.
Was
has an
nominated.
Oscar. Yes,
The
yes,
Cole.
yes.
He can
For
do
his-
more than shut up.
Right.
That's right. The Black Mamba.
Yes,
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 yes.
Showed
his
up.
animation.
That's right, in
Yeah,
animation.
yeah,
That's
He's on the
right.
verge of tears.
That's
so-
right.
Yeah.
But look at the other education he has behind him. That guy is
Exactly.
smart.
Yeah, very
People,
smart.
yeah, they don't know.
They
They
don't
don't know.
know,
So
I'm
there was a
telling you.
lot. There was
That's
definitely
right.
a lot of
That's right.
nominations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, and then the big buzz, of course, is with Black Panther.
Yes.
And we know that
Ooh.
it has really.
Have y'all
rocked
seen
my
Black
tongue.
Panther?
No.
You know what though?
I'll say.
You know what?
Really? See, I'm going
But you
on.
know what?
Don't
But
hate on
see,
it.
the
Don't
first
hate on
time
it.
I
I've seen
saw
it.
it,
Yes.
I
but
need
the
to
first
see it
time,
again.
right?
Yes.
Sorry.
But
Yeah.
the first time I saw it, I didn't get it
Yeah.
until I saw him now outline this 31-year-old who only
Mhm.
made what
Yes.
his third movie.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now outlines now the real dynamic and the
Yeah.
didactic now that he was now trying to bring to the audience and to that culture, because now he looks at the red, the black, and the yellow. This was a part of the flag.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at the empowerment
Right.
of the women.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I
There were
just
killing
there's so
men.
many
Oh.
messages in that movie.
So
Yes.
many different
And
messages.
you know, people are
And he
saying,
brought
so
out the same way.
where did the Black Panther come from? He's not a new
He's
character.
been, yeah,
He's been
he's
around
been
for
in
years.
Marvel.
He
Yes.
is just being
Mhm.
brought
That's
to the
right,
forefront.
that's
And it's
right.
my understanding that they're going to have a sequel, which is wonderful.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
so many messages as it relates to
Oh,
Is,
yeah.
is this the first
Just
$1 billion movie?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
From
and
the
Forbes
Marvel-
just reported
yes,
that
yes.
it
The
topped
first
$1
$1
billion.
billion?
Yeah.
Billion
$1
dollars?
billion.
So-
Still selling out what I hear
Yes.
today?
Yes, yes, yes. And like I said, there's a lot of information that's there. The first time I went to see it before. I took a group of kids because I wanted to see,
Mhm.
you know, what they were going to
Yeah.
see.
Oh, yeah.
And in my eyes, be able to answer questions and be able to, for some people, justify why we are taking children. There's so much that deals with science,
Yeah.
technology,
Oh,
engineering,
yes.
and math
Oh, yeah.
in that particular movie. Not only that, but the messages that it gives about empowering women and
Yes.
just everything about the
Yes.
riches of our culture. Now, we
Yes.
know that there's no place called Rwanda,
Yeah.
but there is a place called
Wakanda.
Africa.
Wakanda.
Or
Wakanda.
Zamunda. Or Zamunda.
Or Zamunda.
But I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming to me, I
I
had to
had
bring that in.
Right,
I had to bring that in.
But you know, you have to do a little bit of the fictitious stuff with the reality
That's right.
in order to have the
Yes.
movie, so people will be. So when I said the first time I went, I wanted to go see what the children were going to see. The second time I went to take children, and something happened with transportation, so they didn't come. So I saw it the second time.
Right, right,
The
right.
third time, the babies arrived.
Mhm.
You know, and so just seeing them
Yeah.
sit on the edges of their seats
Oh.
and to have that conversation about all the things that they could be, you know, in their lives and how we those things that we're teaching in school
Yeah.
can transfer
That's right.
into careers.
That's
for
right.
them.
That's
And it
right.
was just
You
so
know.
symbolic that the movie, I mean, made its
Yes.
debut during Black History Month. We
Right.
took our elementary students
Yeah.
and our middle school students to
Right,
watch
right.
it. It was just very powerful.
I'm into it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And you know, the beautiful thing about it was the colorization, the well, it wasn't animation, but it was
There
more.
was
it was a little bit of it. Yeah, and that's true. But the
I watched
stunt,
it
the
in-
stunt,
through
but the
it.
stunt, but
Yeah,
the
I watched it in
stunts.
3D.
Yes.
But,
I
but,
did
yeah,
too.
but
I had to
the
take my
stunts that
glasses
were
off.
the stunts that were done.
Yes.
Right.
And then guess what you didn't see? You didn't see a bunch of the N-word being spoken, if not any. You didn't see people living poor. You didn't see people with gangs. You saw people good versus evil. Now you had a person now that now took and didn't take for granted that he now had this power over this
Right.
country and over this area. But you had another person that took over now, and people follow now him to a what? 1 or 2 people, but majority of people went to the person that they felt was leading them the right way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so good always will prevail
Yes.
over evil.
Yes.
And that's what I saw out of that.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. That's awesome.
Just a lot going on, and I know you talked about that too in the Oprah Winfrey's movie.
Yes.
You talked about that just
Yes.
being, we're all at the box office.
Yeah.
And don't
So
forget to watch Oprah Winfrey on the
Yes.
Bon Jones show this weekend on Sunday, because she's going to be talking about a whole lot of things dealing with will she run for president.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
And all these different
not just the
topics in the
Wrinkle in
news.
Time.
Right,
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
about a
Wrinkle
lot.
in
right.
Time,
Yeah.
yes.
Does she got a chance?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That's my vote.
That's on that note. Let's switch back to politics a little bit more, because we know right here at home in our own backyard, we have a governor who's been indicted for some of the same things that we've talked about with number 45. And we know that that is an issue that's out, and you've talked about in schools, how we're having those conversations about sexual harassment and being able to train teachers, being able to talk to young people about how important it is that the language in our acts do not get us into a situation that we're having to defend ourselves.
As early as middle school students, and those there's a green dot program taking place in the districts and just in the region in general. And Central High School or Central Middle was actually one of the first schools where they just started to have that dialogue, and students start thinking about it like, have you made a comment on social media that was inappropriate? And so I think a lot of times they don't realize that that's wrong, that that is a crime, and that is something that we need to be more aware of. And just seeing some of the testimonies from some of the students, and they're like, wow, I didn't know that I was doing anything wrong. And they applied it to real life situations and said, if you were an adult in this situation in a place of business, you would more than likely lose your job.
But India, since you're in this whole outline dealing with the school system, do we have adequate screening for teachers now that are entering into this system?
Right.
What type of screening should we have now to open up?
I was going to say we have the background check.
How do they vet these teachers?
Yeah.
You know, and then is it adequate, is sufficient, or is it insufficient? How do our parents get to know who they're going to be now in the classroom with for the next 8 hours?
Yeah. Well, the other thing of it is, it's not a process that the district itself does. It goes through the Highway Patrol or another organization that goes through and it looks at the records.
Well,
and
why
everything.
do we keep hearing about teachers having sex with?
Well,
12
maybe those
years old
are
and
those are
13-year-olds?
teachers who don't have previous records. So if you are vetted coming in, is that a lifetime type of clearance for you? You know, that's been going on a long time. Believe me. You know, those situations, and so things happen. What I find ironic about that whole situation, and I've been in a couple situations with cases, you know, in my career, is that in many cases the parents and the students won't talk. And so if you don't have someone who comes forward to say, this is happening, my child is coming home having this conversation, because they don't want their children to go through that whole court thing, then yes, those perpetrators are going to continue to do exactly what they're doing.
So here's one question, and this is just in my head. You know, we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about school accreditation. We talk about the point of how Johnny and how, you know, our kids are doing in school, their grades. But should that be just a session each semester pertaining to the interaction between the student and the teacher in a private type setting, so that now anything that needs to be exposed isn't hidden? And now maybe the child may say, well, you know, he rubbed me the wrong way, that all these possibilities and probabilities can come down into conversation. Because if we don't talk about the situation, bring it up, then it may be fear, the fact that they may think or go against me, and so it becomes more of an adversary than an advocate. And we ought to have advocacy programs in the schools,
Okay, so
dealing
what
with the
happens
parent
to
and the teacher.
What happens to those conversations with parents that when Johnny gets in the car, Julie or Giussetta gets in the car, and you say, how was your day? We need to stop saying, how was your day, and ask the question. Because a lot of times, how was your day? It was fine. That ends the conversation. Was there something that happened today that we need to talk about? So a lot of that dialogue for parents, because it starts there with children being able to share with their parents what happened in that
Well,
course.
because they shared a lot in that dialogue with that program and talking about sex harassment and just bullying in general, because at the end of the day, it's about power. And they need to take the power back, and I think students are getting the message now.
But I need you to chime on this too. And I need you
please do.
listen. Just because you're a parent does not mean you have good parenting skills. Number two, if I'm 15 years or 16 years older than my child, how then do I know how in retrospect now to come up with a dialogue that is sufficient for that child to open up to me?
Well, and then I think one of the things that they mentioned in the program too, as adults, a lot of times we're not aware what is considered sexual harassment. It may just be a funny joke at the office place or at the water cooler, right? And so if we're as adults, and I'm not a parent yet or anything, but I think if we are not aware of the rules and the regulations and the handbooks and things like that, then how are we going to share
And I
that
think
with our
that goes
children?
with, you know, when you're talking to parents, and there are parenting classes, and there are opportunities for them to ask questions, and some parents will reach out and say, I don't know how to do this. This is
But we
not a
gotta
skill.
make it mandatory though, right, Dr. Marj?
That's
No,
true.
you
I mean,
can't-
yeah,
you
there's
can't
no.
make it mandatory because it doesn't mean that because you make it mandatory, it's gonna happen. I mean, I think it's about educating people on how to do certain things. You know, we talk about, like I said, the parenting classes that maybe individually, if you can get parents to come out, that it goes through those things. How do you handle this type of situation? That gets the dialogue going, and then they can transfer it back home. But many of our parents, just like we were, we parent the way we were parented. You know, how do we break that cycle and providing more skills?
So here's one question: should the church get involved into the school system?
Well, it depends on what the involvement
Yeah,
is.
I was gonna say,
Well, I'm
it's
talking
because
about
of
but
the-
as it relates to this abuse, as it relates to now the whole outline of security.
But I think
Should because you have churches, what, in every
You have
community,
churches
there's a
every-
church,
You're right.
there's a school.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Should the church be involved into that school as it relates to school system, school counseling, school security, involvement as a watch project, now being involved into that?
I think that there's a place for the church. I'm not here to give the prescription of what that looks like. I believe it all begins with the common dialogue. And I believe that some of that is going on right now in our city as we speak. I know for a fact that there are some pilot programs that are out there that allows the churches, or they're trying to allow the churches to be a better part of the conversation. But I think that we also have to keep in mind that there is a law, a legislation that says a separation of church and state. And so how do you get around that to be able, if the churches are coming to parent-teacher conferences, if you're holding conferences with your parishioners, your members, and having people to come in to provide those type of sections, I think that's great. But I think that the community, the schools are going to only be as good at those in the as the community that supports them. Is there a role for the church? Absolutely. What their role is, I don't think that I'm a person to define.
And I definitely
Well,
encourage them to do the community forums and attend those. Oh, yes.
Right.
But see, another part about this we can think about, sometimes it's not what comes out of the mouth that's the voice. Sometimes the presence and the appearance can be the voice. Because what it does do, that shows support. So I think it's the fact that, it's not the point that the church, and I'm a pastor, that I have to say anything, but I think just me being there
Just being there.
is an advocate towards the adversary of something that may become catastrophic or heinous. Now, knowing that they have the community involvement from the church, I think says enough, just sometimes by just sitting there and listening and now being and participating into what now you're trying to achieve.
And I would charge you and invite you that if there is a school in your area, if they're having a town meeting, if they're having a PTA meeting, go and sit in on it.
And we're doing that under our Kwanzaa program. See, Reinhardt wrote a book stating this: how has the church affected community, but how has community affected the church? And to the Umoja and the Yajujima, all these outlines of the 9 principles.
He's speaking Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa. Now the 9 principles gives us an outline in our community, how and what we have so far as unity, how our financial involvement is important, what is our purpose, what is self-discipline, what is application, what is dedication, what is determination, all in these areas, in these principles. So now I think these principles can be applied outside the church into an area which we want our kids to be protected. Because what? Our church has children in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the 2 places we know, and we're going to wrap it up. So think about your last
A
thought.
lot of comments. I know you're thinking.
Lot of comments,
Please
right.
comment.
Those are the 2 places we know that everyone goes. Everyone has been in a school.
The biggest gathering place.
And church.
And
It's
church.
doing the
Those are
weekend
2
school
things
and on
that
Sunday
we
at church.
We need to think about how we bring those together. With
That's
that,
right.
on that note, we like to close the show by saying thank you for listening. Please remember to put your comments in our comment section. If there are any topics you'd like for us to discuss, or if you have any comments about what you've heard us share today, we enjoy coming to you and bringing you those things that are,
Absolutely
we believe,
love
are
it.
hot topics
Yes,
in
yes,
not
hot
only in the greater
topics.
Kansas City, but throughout our country. With that, we say we always talk about change. Change is inevitable, and if we want to see change, you have to be the change you want to see.
That's it.